So
Oh,
thanks for
thank you.
yeah, of course. And thanks for your time and for all your research. Now, I want to just say this before we dive into things. Sam Asghari is clearly not thrilled about this documentary. I, for one, can't wait to watch it. But I guess my question is, Sam is saying no one close to Britney really can speak to what's going on. So who are the people in your documentary, and are they close to Britney?
People close to Britney.
Mm,
Yes.
okay.
And, and I'm not talking one or two. And when I say close, what you've got to understand as well is she has different elements of her life. That there are people in her life, but nobody is making the decisions. It's all Britney making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to how she spends her time, she is a very solitary person, very isolated, which is not a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we have talked to numerous people who, and I don't want to be more specific than that,
Okay.
but this documentary is accurate.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I mean, listen, I'm here for it. I'm really anxious to know what's going on. I wrote a whole article for Nicki Swift Celeb, basically saying, a few months ago that nobody knows what's going on in Britney's life post conservatorship, right? We really don't. We see her posts on social media. We see an occasional picture or video when she's on vacation. But Harvey, that's really it. I mean, do you guys have more? Is there more to this? Is there more to her life right now?
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing never hits the mark. I mean,
Okay.
you know the way it works when people post on social media that
Mhm.
does not align with real life. And
Right.
real life for Britney, like I said, is very isolated. We have a segment which is just a day in the life of Britney where we show how she spends her days.
Mm.
Being isolated is not a great thing when you have mental illness. And, look, she's got, she hasn't seen her kids in more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
She has completely estranged from her family in Louisiana. She's having issues with Sam. He doesn't spend much time at the house, these days.
Okay.
And she's very much, to herself. And but it all gets back to something when you look at this Free Britney movement, and this is not something we do in the documentary,
Mm-hmm.
but when you look at it, there was a tidal wave that ultimately influenced the judge in this case, in the Free Britney movement. But the one thing that was never addressed in this whole movement was mental illness.
Right.
And that's at the base of everything here.
Yeah.
That's why there was the conservatorship in the first place in 2005 and 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't just go away. It can be managed with medication. It can be managed with therapy. But now she's in charge of managing it. And one of the things that happened here, if you look at it, is this judge, who I believe just got completely swept up in this movement.
Mm.
Every 6 months, the judge was listening to doctors to make sure that what her status was.
Okay.
The judge never did that at the end. The judge just cut her loose. So she was literally in a conservatorship for 13 years since she was in her 20s.
Right.
And then one day, she's completely free. There was no transition. How does anybody manage that?
Yeah, and Harvey,
how does anybody manage that?
I agree with you. And I want to say, I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what was going on in Britney's life. And, at one point I thought about this and I said, who are we, her fans and the public, to determine whether or not she is capable to leave this conservatorship, right? I think
that's exactly what happened.
Right. But for me, Harvey, the issue is that she's under this conservatorship and yet she's still expected to work and pay all the bills for her family and her friends and all these people who live off her if she's so mentally ill. That's what really gets me. And I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no, listen. I get exactly what you're saying.
Right.
And I'm not saying the conservatorship should have gone on. I'm not, maybe the casting was certainly bad, that Jamie overstayed his welcome.
Right.
But I'm not saying any of that, but what I am saying is there was at least a structure. And this is not to defend the conservatorship, but this is what I'm talking about, where there was no transition.
I get
That
it.
when you look at the beginning of the conservatorship, right before it started, she was broke. She did not have any custody of her kids. She lost all of it. She was in deep, deep trouble. When the conservatorship started and they created a structure, she eventually got 50-50 custody back. She made money. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't
Okay.
problems, because there were. But then the issue is, was it done properly? Was there a way of doing it where there was still a structure and she still maintained freedom? Or at least was there some ramp down stage where there was a transition to teach her the skills to manage her life? But you can't
Right.
go from being in that for years and years and years to one day, okay, you're free now.
Right.
How does anybody manage that?
Yeah, no, you bring up a really great point. Like maybe this wasn't the worst idea, the conservatorship, but it was executed so poorly. Now, I think a lot of people saw the video of Britney. You know, you don't see her out very often, but the video in January when her and Sam got in this fight at an LA restaurant. I mean, and then she's sitting at the table and she's kind of talking to herself, right? She seems a little bit unhinged, so to speak. I think for me, that's when I was like, oh, wow, I think something really might be up. Because, you know, if I get in a fight with my husband, I'm not going to sit there and talk to myself at the table.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I want to defend Sam on this. I don't think that's
Okay.
what happened. I
Okay.
think what happened, I believe, is this. I know she went to the restaurant with Sam, and she became like a circus act immediately, that people started pulling their cameras out and just
Mm,
taking pictures of her, like she was the entertainment for the evening. And
sure.
it upset all of them. Sam actually didn't storm out. He went out to get the car so that she could get in the car when she left the restaurant and leave.
Yeah.
And then when she was sitting there alone, you're right. I mean, you saw her just almost fall apart. She was talking gibberish. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't English, and you could hear it. But yeah, it was really disturbing. But that is just one peek into a problem that has been festering for a long time.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I did read that after the fact. There was no fight. However, I just was like, is she doing this on purpose to give people the show they want? I just don't know. Now, the last thing I want to ask you, and at first, I found it to be totally absurd. And then I looked into it and I was like, holy crap, Harvey, this whole AI thing. I mean, you go into her Instagram. I mean, she is clearly using a green screen of her backyard. You can tell a difference. I don't know who is doing this to her or for her, but is it possible somebody is just posting this nonsense, her dancing and what she loves just to keep her fans quiet? It's so weird.
Yeah, I honestly, on that, I just don't know. I
You don't
do
know.
know that she has
Yeah.
certainly posted her fair share of these videos.
Yeah.
I can't say whether I mean, I don't know how to distinguish AI from reality anymore.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well,
it
have you
it
looked? Have you looked at
honestly,
her Instagram to see the green
yeah,
screen? It's
no, and
weird.
I just don't know. I just
Yeah.
don't know. But she has
Okay.
posted a lot of that stuff herself, certainly in the year and a half since the conservatorship ended.
Yeah. And then one more thing that she does on her Instagram, previously, instead of having her name be Britney Spears, you click on her handle and it was channel 8. Now it's River Red. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How are you messing with us? Well, I keep looking this up. What does this mean? It was some Chinese saying. I don't even know, but it didn't make sense to me. Like, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, I will say there's a lot that doesn't make sense here, in the
Sure.
sense that but it kind of, it speaks to what's really going on here, which is, look, I mean, she needs some help,
Yeah.
and and I do think this does go back to just cutting her loose without any transition. It
Yeah.
was just an impossible thing for her.
And last thing, what do you say to Sam Asghari, who says this is so disrespectful, this documentary, without getting,
Well,
Britney's.
I mean, when you
Yeah.
watch the documentary,
Hmm.
I hope, and we tried to put humanity in this. I mean, she needs some help.
Yeah.
and there's a person there, and there's a person who's really loved by a lot of people.
Yes.
And I think there were a lot of well-intentioned people who didn't necessarily look for her best interest. They were looking for a fantasy of what they wanted, but they weren't necessarily looking out for her best interest. And I think, and I will tell you that the people we spoke with who worked with us, they hope that this shines a light on her getting some help.
Yeah.
But that seems to be necessary right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I cannot wait to get some popcorn and some wine and watch this documentary tonight, Harvey. I'm so excited. So thank you so much for all the work that you do and for coming on the Lauren Interviews podcast.
It's my pleasure, Lauren.
Bye.